Hello, my loves. Today we're going to look at some more Reddit stories, and if you've enjoyed a Reddit story, why don't you consider hitting the subscribe button? Maybe that's the notification bell too, and let's start with today's story. Story: AITA for telling my partner I don't care about his family vacation. My partner and I have known each other for about 3 years, but we've only been dating for 2. Originally from a smaller town, I moved in with my partner in a bigger city in 2023 when things got serious. My partner never officially came out to his parents. It was a case of we just kind of know, but aren't talking about it. When I moved in, he called his parents and reaffirmed that he was gay, dating me, and that I had moved in. They told him they needed time to process the situation, which I can understand. Fast forward to today, and I still haven't officially met his family, although he's met mine and is very close with them. The only time I've met them was at a wedding where we glanced at each other from across the room. His dad introduced himself but left right after. Sometimes it is awkward. For example, he will be on the phone with his mom or dad and I immediately stop what I'm doing and don't say anything or go to another room because I don't want to make things weird. I've brought this up to my partner before. He is usually empathetic and says he'll plan something so we can meet, but it never happens. His family lives about 45 minutes away from us. My family, because I moved, is now 5.5 hours away. So, it just sucks that much more because I don't have my family to go to it easily at least. To his defense, when he visits, talks to his family, he does tell me that they do ask about me, mostly his mom. But that only goes so far. Every year, they go on a family vacation for a week, my partner, his parents, his sister, and her husband. I stay behind. Last year, I understood why I couldn't go since I had just moved in 4 months prior. But this year, it's hitting me hard since it's been over a year, and his family hasn't made any effort to get to know me. I have to spend another week alone at home, and it hurts that his sister and her partner are included though they are a straight couple. My partner has been sending me snaps of the vacation. I told him that I'm glad he's having fun, but that I don't care to see or hear about it. I hate to make him feel a certain way during his vacation, but I think I'm justified in my response. Story: Understanding Our Differences. Hello, I am a 27 years old partnered with a 30 years old. Both of us have experienced a lot of traumatizing events in our lives within childhood and partnerships as adults. We've been trying to figure out our togetherness for about 1.5 years now, which holds a lot of love and compassion, but it feels like mostly we're arguing about why it's not working and building resentment. We get into disagreements about things that we both take way out of proportion. I am getting to a point where I feel like I'm always doing or saying something wrong in some manner. I feel like my sense of self-esteem has plummeted so far that what I think/remember is doubted by my own self. I've had a brain injury in my teens that has affected my memory capacity, and I've opened up to my partner about this. I'm self-conscious about it, but even when I'm sure of something, I'm not for long because she remembers something completely different. I feel like the things I do, say, are capitalized on as if she plays no part to me getting there, and either I am convinced that I'm doing something wrong or that she's trying to manipulate me. I don't know what to believe anymore and end up folding to what she claims of me. She studied psychology, so I feel convinced sometimes, but I've been called every name in the book and it's breaking me down to a point where I don't even know what's true about myself anymore. I'm okay with questioning what I think I know and seeing from different perspectives, but I feel like I'm going nuts here, like I actually don't know what's real anymore. We were trying to put a beat-up bed frame together. I reacted and got frustrated, which I'm expressive when I'm irritated with something, and I know it isn't exactly enjoyable to be around, but it's hard for me to retain my blurts. God damn it, this is fucking ridiculous, but it's never directed at her. She rudely says go take a minute and that I'm triggering her with my reactivity, that I've been explosive all morning when I hit my elbow and then my knee a bit later. I seeked comfort from her after I groaned in pain and rolled on the floor from the knee hit, not explosive in my opinion, and said that it all started because I had to purchase something that I was annoyed with having to purchase. We had a conversation about it. She didn't think I really needed to buy it. I say it's stupid and I already did. I need to ask someone who knows the laws to find out more, and we moved on. Circling back, I am trying to disassemble the bed frame that didn't work properly. She's by the side of it and I realized I was moving too abruptly and I stopped so she could move. Right after I stopped she snaps at me with, "Stop so I can get by." She got upset because she was nervous I was going to hit her ankle and said I don't care about her feelings by not apologizing for making her nervous. We take time apart and then come back to talk, which again leads to argument. She says I invalidated her feelings because I didn't take ownership for how I made her feel even if it didn't happen. I respond with, "How does it imply I do not care with my actions?" by stopping before she had said anything, which I'm genuinely asking her. She looks at me like I'm crazy because that's not how it happened, and now I'm trying to distort her reality and blame shift. Then she's screaming at the top of her lungs from 2 away, so loud it hurts my ears, which is very triggering. I get mental overload when I'm being screamed at. I finally reach my limit of her screaming in my face, and I stand up feeling like I'm about to explode and yell back, "Stop yelling, I can't fucking handle the yelling," with my hands on my head. Then she says, "What, you're going to hit me now?" and gets up to walk away. To which I say, "What the fuck? No, I'm not going to hit you, that didn't even cross my mind." She goes in her room and slams the door to come out a few minutes later saying, "Can we try talking again?" Often when I try to speak for my side, she talks over me or starts screaming that I'm making her crazy, to which I'm not heard or actually considered for what I'm saying and feeling. Even when I'm calm, it's like it makes her react more. Sometimes I tell her multiple times how something has made me feel, and it finally clicks after me bringing something up over and over and saying it in just the right way that she understands. Story, Wibta, if I cut contact with my brother for disrespecting my significant other. I'm a trans 17 years old girl and my significant other is 17 years old NB, who we'll call Amy. We've been dating for 5 years and are truly proud of where we have come from. We both live in Texas. Fake names for obvious reasons. Now to the post. A little over 2 years ago, I came out to my oldest brother, John, that I was uncertain about my gender assigned at birth and was looking into myself to see if it was really what I wanted. He and his wife, Stacy, who are both pansexual, came out in full support of me and have been there for me up until today. A couple of months ago, he invited me and Amy to come down to spend a couple days with them. We were overjoyed by the invitation and accepted. Amy had a lot of anxiety about the trip beforehand, but with reassurance and lots of talking, we were able to calm the nerves and go in with an open mind. When we got there, we exchanged greetings and went out for some food. Afterwards, we decided to stay in that night and just hang out back at their house. The next morning, my brother had work, so Amy and I hung out with Stacy and talked for a few hours while we watched TV. However, Amy started to have some cramping and nausea, so they went to go lie down. I went with them and we hung out for a little bit in their room. After my brother got home, we decided to play some games together and talk for a couple hours. After we had finished, Amy frantically texted me and asked me if I could send Stacy to the bathroom. Confused and worried, I agreed. Stacy didn't question it at all and went right in to help and said nothing after they were finished, which I am perfectly okay with. Amy asked that I not ask about it due to them being embarrassed, and I didn't question it, and we went to bed. The following day, we had some breakfast and thanked them for allowing to have our first trip alone together and that we had an amazing time. We left shortly after. Now on to the part that may make me an asshole. Obviously, with both Amy and I being gender non-conforming, I have been paying a lot of attention to politics in America. Despite what side of the aisle you're on, it is irrefutable that the Republicans and Project 2025 are going to take away rights for trans people of all ages, and that's not even the biggest issue if they are elected. Recently, Trump posted a video to his site speaking on protecting the kids by eradicating protections for trans healthcare for kids and adults alike. I will post a link to the video if necessary. I've had many conversations with John up to this point about these points that Trump has taken. He's a Republican, and we've both given our viewpoints on these issues. He takes the standpoint that surgery and hormones are both completely optional and that the government shouldn't be using tax dollars to pay for these. I was deeply concerned by this video and sent it to him. He doesn't like talking over text, so he calls me as usual after watching the video. He opens the conversation by stating that he agrees with everything said in the video and then goes on a 10 to 15 minute rant about how all of these options are choice and that the kids should be kept away from this stuff, how he was disheartened by Amy's codependence on me, and how he didn't feel any gratitude for letting us stay at his house. Then, the topic of my femininity got infused into the conversation, to which he stated he never caught an ounce of feminine nature from me. Okay, ouch, but whatever. He then goes on to talk about Amy's androgyny, to which he completely disrespects their choice of pronouns and outright calls them a girl because there is nothing non-binary about her. At this point, I'm seeing red. Before I blew up and started screaming at him, I just hung up the phone. He attempted to call me back, but I sent it to voicemail. I wrote a pretty lengthy text highlighting my problems with everything he said, stating my true feelings about everything he said, and politely stated that I wish to not speak with him until he apologizes for the comments made about Amy. I didn't know if I was being unreasonable, so I refrained from sending it. Now comes the point where I ask you Reddit, would I be the asshole for cutting contact with John? I apologize for the long post, I had a lot on my mind. Story, AITA for dating my ex's best friend. I am 17 years old, broke up with my boyfriend, let's call him Alan, not his real name, at the time 18 years old, a couple months back. For some backstory, I had been dating him for about 8 months and it came to a stop one day when we had another fight. Fights were common and over stupid shit, and this was just like every other one. He consistently ignored me whenever we argued and would turn around and simply not speak or look at me. Instead of taking it and staying and begging like I normally did, I decides to leave. I told him whenever he felt like talking to text me. I left his house and in a couple minutes got a text from him saying that he wouldn't be speaking to me for the rest of the day. I didn't want to go home, so I went to where I used to work and where his best friend works. Let's call his 18 years old best friend Steve, not his real name. I got myself some food and sat down at one of the tables. I used to work with him and again, he was my, at the time, boyfriend's best friend. So, he knew me and came to talk to me. He had asked me where Alan was and if I was heading to his house. When I told him I had just come from his house, he asked me what was going on. I went on to explain to him what happened and told him some stuff about how Alan was and how our relationship was. He listened and responded and encouraged me to break up with him since I clearly wasn't happy. I was scared and he said him and his friend could help me figure out what to say. So, after shift we went to his friend's house to figure out what to say. We figured it out and talked some more about the relationship between me and Alan. After I left and went home, I sent Alan a text telling him I was breaking up with him. I realize this may have been cowardly, but I was scared of what he might do had I done it in person, and doing it over the phone I felt I wouldn't be able to get out what I needed to say. Later that night Alan called me. He begged me not to break up with him, and in the 8 months we had been together it was the second time he'd ever cried to me. I told him there was no changing my mind and after a while got to hang up. I called Steve after and we talked into the night. Almost until the morning. That morning Steve got a text from Alan's mom telling him that Alan had hurt and called the police on himself. He proceeded to go to a mental hospital. He called me a couple of days later. It was a calm call. He said he just wanted to hear my voice. At this point I still cared about his well-being and humored him. He was let out a couple of days later and we had some belongings to exchange, so he got his best friend, Steve, to drive him to my house. He didn't have a vehicle. By this point Steve and I knew we had feelings for each other. Story about my situation, trauma, not knowing what to do. In my child and teenage hoods my mom wasn't supportive, she was full of her own trauma and never took a good care of me. She stopped walking me to school at the 1st grade, as well as cooking me breakfasts. I was doing all myself from my very young age. Whole my life I was a creative person, I've loved drawing whole my life. School days were okayish, I was drawing in my sketchbook and didn't really care about what's going on. Well, I had some troubles with education, but that's not a point. My mom did not appreciate it at all. She liked to say that it is pointless. I have to have good marks so I can succeed at life, like most of moms like to say. College days were a disaster. I was stalked, almost beaten by other students, teachers were pushing me hard, I had terrible panic attacks, I was nearly suffocating in the college toilet and crying, and no one was knowing about it. My mom had no idea what I was going through. She wasn't supporting me and I had to pull myself together to keep going. I never finished college and left, which caused my mom to go crazy. Literally. She became yelling at me and be mad at me for existing. I've been told to pay for living in her flat. She didn't care about me being her child. I had become a stranger who needs to pay for everything. She was pushing me every day, yelling, taking away my phone and PC cables. Meantime, I tried the hardest to draw and make something from commissions, but it all were going to my mom's wallet costs I have to pay for being here. 3 years passed, I was earning my hardest to afford one surgery that changed my life. Meanwhile, my mom was visiting psychologist and it seemed that she became better, we could chat without anger, she accepted me and was as respectful as she could. We moved to another living place, my relationship with mom was good at that point. She even took a money credit to make this house better, I agreed to help with it and everything was amazing. For a year. She met a man, they started dating. A year ago he moved to our house. He became making his own rules and trying to change me. He doesn't understand that I'm working while sitting on PC, every day he was telling me stop playing, get a job. I never yelled at him, I never said anything to him, I accepted him as my mom's man. She's just a woman who needs love. But the way he threats me. And my mom defends him. I want you to understand the picture. So, this is me, working hard every day to pay for mother's credit, buy food for me and cats, and manage to prepare food for myself. My mom, in the other hand, doesn't work and always borrows money from me. She rarely cooks and even if she cooks her boyfriend eats everything. Her boyfriend, well, helps with the house but gets into my private life and tries to reteach me. I could tolerate it. But he started yelling at me. This fucker started screaming at me, at 22 years old person, who managed to make a living on commissions, that I'm not doing anything and just playing the whole time. This is worse, let me tell you a situation that happened not long ago. I prepared foods for everyone, I haven't eaten. I was drawing whole day non-stop and was very hungry. I remember that I have food waiting in the kitchen. When I entered it, I saw this man pouring all the food at his plate. I kindly said, please, share a plate with me, I haven't eaten and this fucker started yelling at me so hard, my whole city could hear it. I was shaking, my mom tried to chill him, and after that he said to me, your life is easy. Your mom does everything to you. You're useless. I really thought he will punch me. He was very angry at me. I was crying after that and never touched food. I was trying to speak with my mom but she says he is right. He is fucking right. And she says it after I support her financially. Yesterday I was told that even if I will move out, I will die as I'm so useless and can't do anything, and my home will be a place of garbage. And now, I have panic attacks once again, my sleep is awful. You may say, get your own place. I really want. But this is complicated. I don't want to rent someone's house and give money to a random person. I want my own place and I'm saving up as much as I can to afford it. You may say, don't give money to family and you will be right. The reason is complicated. I lived so long with the idea that I owe to my mom because she pushed me very hard with this. I can't just stop paying her, she will scream, she will curse me, and I need to, just don't care, but I can't. It's all so freaking complicated. I am in a deep trauma and I don't know what to do. For anyone who will probably ask, I'm from Russia and domestic violence is legal there. I can't go to the police as they will never even take a peek at my situation. And I don't have any IRL friends. So I can't even go anywhere else. Story, Wibda if I break up with a guy who I just see as a friend. So here's what's going on, I, 27-year-old, knew this guy, 27-year-old, from a summer job I worked at while in college. For the story, we will call him Brad. That was 9 to 10 years ago. We fell out of touch because he left that job to do classes during the next summer or another job, TBH I don't remember. Last August he got in touch with me again and we started talking. We met for the first time in years this past November and have fun hanging out. This past Easter he asked me to be his girlfriend and I hesitantly said yes. Recently, I have been feeling like we are just friends and have been trying to not really talk to him much anymore. We used to talk almost every day, but now I'm starting to get the feeling like he feels the same way. Another reason why I have been trying to distance myself from the relationship is because he wants to do everything in a certain area of my city that is 10 minutes away from my house. I have been getting tired of us always going to that area just to see movies, go to dinner, or bowl/arcade. I want to go to a different area of our town, but I would have to do all the driving. Brad is not comfortable driving on the highway, and I have had to drive multiple times to the location we are going to. Brad has a birth defect, which could be the reason why he is not comfortable on highways. I'm also not going to tell you what that birth defect is in case someone he knows sees this. Brad is not attractive at all. I know I sound like a stuck-up person, but I'm not. I have had multiple people telling me that attraction is like 50% of the relationship. Brad is not much of a sports fan. I am a major sports fan. I grew up in a house where if football, baseball, or basketball were on TV you had to watch it. Also, I played basketball in middle school. My brother played baseball since he was little. He doesn't like hiking or biking. My brother and I love hiking. My dad and I love biking too, so that does not give us a whole lot to do. Every time he asks if I want to go see a movie or go to the bowling alley, arcade, or go to dinner, I groan and don't really want to answer him at the moment of the text. Brad has met my parents and they like him. I have met his family and they are really nice. His niece loves me. I have talked to my parents about this and my mom thinks I'm in a hole for acting the way I have been acting with him. She doesn't get that I am absolutely miserable in this relationship. Every time we go out and she asks how it was, I will always reply it was fine. She grills me about it and asks why I am like this with him, and I tell her I'm not. She basically accuses me of being mean to him, which I'm never mean to him. My dad tries to be the mediator, but my mom keeps pushing me towards him. At one point we had another argument about him, and it got so bad that my parents kept saying you're drunk and we'll talk about this tomorrow. I had only one drink, adult drink, so I was not drunk. At that point I screamed at them, I'm ing miserable and he makes me miserable. I don't like him at all. I want to stop seeing him and start seeing other people. I left their house and went back to my apartment, 2-minute drive from their house, and cried my eyes out for the rest of the night. Brad is a nice guy, but I just don't see this relationship going anywhere. A friend of mine asked me if he said he loved you, would you say it back? I told her I would, but I would not actually mean it. I would just say it back because he said it. I don't want to lead him on, and if he decides at one point to get down on one knee, doubt he will ever, I don't want to hurt him by saying something like I don't see myself marrying you, or I felt this way for a while but couldn't break up with you because it was seriously hurt you. Story, AITA for taking my mental struggles out on my boyfriend. I am 20 years old, have been with 20 years old my boyfriend for roughly 6 months. Our relationship has been great for the most part. He is an amazing partner to me. We've had our fair share of arguments and disagreements, but we tend to resolve them one way or another. I also struggle with some mental health issues, which can sometimes take a toll on our relationship. My boyfriend reassures me that I can come to him with my struggles, but I tend to find that he struggles to grasp the intensity of my emotions and how real my emotions feel for me. I have not seen a professional about these issues, and they have persisted throughout my childhood and into adulthood, so I've been handling them all on my own. I was grateful to find a support group that helped me get through these struggles, but I lost that shortly after my boyfriend entered my life due to unrelated drama. As a result, I find myself confiding in him a lot for emotional support. I don't have a great relationship with my family, so he's kind of the only person I have right now. Anyways, since we started dating, we have been calling or talking to each other every day or every other day. We make time for it by calling in our free time or staying up a little later at night. We usually hang out once a week, as our busy schedules don't allow us to meet more than that. However, over the past week, I had made multiple attempts every day to see if he is free to call, but he was always busy, typically playing Call of Duty with his friends. A few different nights, I tried to force myself to sleep early because he was busy staying up with his friends. I didn't want to be needy and deprive him of his time with his friends, but it really started taking a toll on me mentally when I was making constant efforts to reach out, and he was busy. He would say things like, "I'm so sorry, I feel bad," to which I reassured him that everything was okay. This is where I think I am to blame. I should have just told him that I would really like it if he could take time out of his day at some point to talk to me, since I feel quite alone. One night, we did end up calling after multiple days of only talking somewhat over text, and I was not in a good state mentally. I felt very alone because I had no friends to turn to, and I expressed this to him. I opened up about some of my recent struggles and feelings unrelated to him, and his only solution so far has been to get stronger mentally. That statement has been said to me a lot by him in an attempt to help me, but it often feels invalidating to how overwhelming my struggles can be. I could tell that seeing me like this upset him, so he told me he needed time alone, and that's how our call ended. I started sobbing after the phone call because I felt like I was pushing him away from myself. The one time I was able to call him, he wanted to be left alone. Now, I'm confused about whether I messed up by placing certain expectations on him, that he will be able to support me through my struggles and would communicate with me on a daily basis. I'm having a hard time navigating this, as I know that my perspective is strongly driven by my emotions, and I don't want to burden my boyfriend in a way that inhibits him from living his life. Story: AITA for questioning my boyfriend and my relationship. My boyfriend, 28 years old, and I am 28 years old, have been together for 4 years. We've had our ups and downs, and there is way more than I could get into about some highly upsetting and unhealthy things that have happened. I've chosen to get over them, but I'm starting to question myself and the relationship over something that happened last night. I have a reminder on my phone that goes off silently every hour, 1-minute dance party, and I use it during the day when I'm working to remind me to get up and stand. I've had this for about 2.5 years. My boyfriend defensively asked me a month ago who was texting me in the middle of the night. I got confused and asked him what he meant, and he said he heard my phone vibrate. I explained to him that I have my reminder, which we've talked about in the past, and also that we have a security camera that gives me notifications. I showed him my phone and he said he understood. I didn't like the tone and the lack of confidence he showed towards me, but I decided it was fair enough for him to ask. We've also talked openly that we don't care whether the other looks at their phone, never happens, but we know that it's fine. I truly don't care because I have nothing to hide. I woke up in the middle of the night last night to him demanding to know who I was texting. I was so confused and saw that I was leaning over my phone on the side table. I think I was turning my phone over in my sleep because my notification went off for our security camera and the phone was lighting up the room. I'm not sure because it all feels like a dream, but he was angry and demanded to know who I was texting. I stated I didn't know because in that moment I wasn't sure what was going on. He demanded my phone and I handed it over, and he scrolled for a while, then gave it back. I put it on my charger and fell immediately back to sleep. It all felt like a dream, and I thought it was until I woke up this morning and really thought about it. I've explained to him why my phone will sometimes light up in the night, doesn't vibrate for security camera, light one time, vibrate for reminder. He knows. I should turn it over before I fall asleep, but that's my own forgetfulness. I feel like his lack of trust in me is completely unfair, as I have never given him a reason to doubt me, ever. I don't have any male friends, as I haven't spoken to any of them since college. I work from home, so I have no coworkers I'm interacting with during the week. I hardly ever leave the house. He uses my car and is gone a lot, and I am always here. We have security cameras which he has access to, so he literally could see if I left and when, but that never happens because I'm home 95% of the time, and if I'm out of the house, I'm usually with him. So I feel like it's unfair and insulting for him to even have a sliver of doubt towards me. I have very truthfully spoken to him how I feel about cheating. It's a non-option and I would never. I've also told him that cheating is completely unacceptable to me, and if he ever did, then it would be over. There would be no discussion. I thought he actually heard me when we had these discussions. He, however, has shown me multiple times that he does not respect my boundaries. He messaged one of my old friends we saw at a party and lied about it. She messaged me and told me and her husband also blew up at my BF for messaging her. He apologized profusely and told me he meant nothing by it. He has gone out with a work client who is a beautiful woman our age and got wasted with her and drove home drunk. And left me in Reed, so I was worried sick. He went out with her a good bit and I let him know how much it upset me, but he did it anyway. He went out of his way to meet an 18-year-old client at a coffee shop and was 2 hours late to getting home when I was having health issues and needed him. He didn't tell me what he had been doing until a week later. Girls constantly flirt with him in my face and it's rude. We've had more girls than I can count who've asked him if they could join us in bed, and I've made it very clear I don't want a threesome. It bothers me that they feel so okay with asking him even though he says no. He blew up at me at a bar once when I told him he looks just like his mom and that he has good genes. He then took that as me wanting his dad and began yelling at me that I wanted his dad and he couldn't believe I was that type. I am still deeply insulted and disgusted that he even thought that. I haven't seen his family since, and that was 1.5 years ago. I don't want to see them. He once yelled at me and told me I was unfaithful because I spoke to his uncle at a family gathering about his aunt who is a photographer. I'm also a photographer. She wasn't at the gathering, but the uncle was telling me that his wife would love to meet me and talk about photography if I wanted advice. She is more experienced than I am. I've seen him message old friends and exes on social media and Snapchat. He's gotten angry when I mentioned a football player I thought was cute when I was in middle school. He gets angry if I don't answer the phone right away. The list can go on. I'm just really insulted that, as someone who has never once considered unfaithfulness, has had him point a finger at me when he has 3 fingers pointing back at him. He has given me 1,000,000 reasons not to trust him, and yet I do. And he has the audacity to question me. I'm insulted, and it's really made me think deeply about whether I even want this to continue. I am not a person of low moral character, and for him to act like I am and not trust me I don't know, it just really makes me angry. Story: AITA for telling husband I know he would never protect me. How do I handle my husband's anger over my belief that he would never protect me? I am 57 years old, married my husband 65 years old, 8 years ago. We have a 5-year-old daughter. He is an excellent father to her. We each have adult children. Husband has 2 sisters, both married with families of their own. And, 60 years old, likes to make jokes about me. Her jokes revolve around how I ended my first husband and must intend to end her brother. She has repeatedly said that if her brother dies before me, she's going to tell law enforcement that I ended him. Husband thinks her jokes are funny. First husband was healthy with hypertension controlled by medicine. At 52, he passed away in his sleep right next to me. I still struggle with anxiety over this. The emergency services responded to my call. Police officer told me that the county coroner had decided that no autopsy was needed. Adult daughter demanded we have him cremated. Our pastor told me it would be best to let her have her way. So, I did. So, definitely joke material. When my dad passed away a couple years ago, and the other sister sent a memorial bench to my home. I demanded that the store take it back because it made my grief so much worse. All I could think was how would and blame me for this. I refused to attend any family event within since. Husband says I am just creating drama and it's in the past. When I get hurt, his first response is to tell me what I could have done to avoid getting hurt. Fell down the front steps, bouncing on my tailbone. He looked down at me sitting on the ground in pain and said, you should have held on to side rails. I hired a home improvement store to build fencing around a pasture area. Because of the type of livestock, there were extra steps needed. Goats are escape artists. The company rep actually checked around because he hadn't heard of requests like mine. His colleague who grew up with goats assured him my requests were absolutely necessary. So I paid and he sent it to the subcontractor. He came out and argued that a residential fence was all I needed. I stood my ground. He refused to do the work. Big box rep talked to him. He still refused, but for some reason they couldn't give a different subcontractor the job. I finally filled out an online complaint on the website. Subcontractor did the work. Husband was furious that I put our business online. He said it would ruin his reputation. His name was not on any of it. The assassination attempt happened and husband saw the report about the guy who died protecting his wife and daughter. Husband turns to me and says that he would do that for me and our daughter. I told him that I know he would do that for our daughter, but I also know he would never protect me. He looked really angry, but just said that was sad. He knows I think I can't trust him to stand up for me. He's even made up stories about times he defended me. Of course, always when I'm not around. So, I called the people who witnessed one such occasion and they confirmed that he was lying. If you have made it this far, what the heck do I do? If I divorce him, I separate him from our daughter who worships him. I have told him I know he's lying about defending me. There are a lot more examples of times he gets upset with me for standing up for myself. I'm creating drama if I don't just take it. Story, AITA for asserting my boundaries of having my own space. I am 32 years old, and my husband is 36-year-old. We have been married for almost 3 years, and we are both Muslims. 4 days ago, I found out I was 12 to 15 weeks pregnant, and 2 days ago, I told my husband. His immediate reaction was to negate what I said and tell me that he will not accept this. He threw the clinic papers on the table and continued to say he was not going to accept this because he is not ready and he was not going to be a part of it at all. He then demanded I go get the abortion pill, and when I did not say anything because I was already crying, he demanded I go get an abortion. I ended up going out because I was really hungry. He ended up falling asleep, and after I came home, I went to bed. The next morning, I woke up for work, and as soon as I was walking out the door, he got up really fast to tell me he was going to pick me up from work to go to the clinic and take care of this as soon as possible. I told him I didn't want to talk about this right now, and I needed to leave for work. He complained and said, "How can you leave me hanging like this?" I told him I didn't want to talk about that now and left for work. Later that day, he asked me to meet him in a public place to talk. I told him I was working until later, and I was too tired, and I wanted to go home right away. He said, okay, and waited for me to get home to talk, and he wanted to talk fast because he had to go somewhere. When we started talking, he basically started off by saying this is not what he expected, that he never agreed to have children right now, and that he was not okay with this because he was not ready. He also continued by saying he had not ended his business inside for a long time now, and that I was deceiving him because he trusted me taking birth control. I told him that in the beginning of our marriage, we agreed to be careful about having kids, but we were also aware they could happen anytime regardless. I have been on birth control consistently for this whole time. I did switch methods at some point, and only recently, my husband started wearing condoms, but not consistently. I do know for a fact that he would sometimes end his business inside. It happened a couple of times, but it did, and most of the time we were together, we didn't wear anything, even if he ended up outside. He is blaming me for the whole situation, and when I confronted him about trying to take me to the clinic, he was dumbfounded and said he wanted to take me to get another test. For reference, I showed him a home test and the clinic test. When I confronted him about it, and asked if he thought I was lying after I gave him a clinic test, he said he was okay with the test I gave him and dropped the clinic issue. When I confronted him about demanding an abortion, he said he wasn't trying to force me to do it, but he also said that if I continued with the pregnancy, I was going to be responsible for the consequences because he wasn't having this situation. He said that he didn't want to have babies if we might move countries. I told him that we can bring our baby anywhere, and we had already had plans to move, so it wouldn't be any change to our plans, and we can rearrange details. He also said that the bottom line was that if I wanted to be with him, we had to push this to the side. He said this pregnancy would break him and ruin everything for us and doom our lives in every way. When I asked him to clarify what he meant, I told him that per his words, there were two paths. If I want to be with him, I must get rid of it. If I don't, he would neglect any responsibility and would not be a part of anything moving forward, meaning he would also abandon me. He tried to tell me that's not what he meant, and I asked him what would happen if I made up my mind and chose to follow through. He said he wasn't sure. He said this is the best for us and our lives, and maybe later, we can have other kids since we are both healthy. For reference, we have been married for 3 years, and we are both Muslims. He did mention that it was allowed to carry out the procedure as long as I am under 4 months, but that's under extreme circumstances where there is something wrong with the pregnancy, not just for any reason. I told him that for us, babies are considered blessings, and they always come with sustenance, but he laughed sarcastically and said, this was not the type of blessing he wanted. That he wanted kids, but years later, maybe after 3 years, once we both have our citizenships. His would take about 1 to 2 years from now, because I have to fix mine and request him. He said after this happened, then we could both see where our relationship stands and decide on kids. He has been acting like I am not pregnant and like life goes on, but he said that my choice will either make things work or crush them. I have also been under a lot of stress working extra hours to pay off money I had to borrow for emergencies, so I don't have money to spare for food right now, and he is not worried to ask if I eat or not. I haven't had more than 2 eggs a day for the last 3 days and I feel really tired. He doesn't want anyone to know and he is pretending that this situation does not exist. I'm so exhausted. Story, AITA for blocking, ignoring, and uninviting my father. I am 17-year-old about to start college in a month and have a family dilemma. I'm looking for a good personal resolution regarding my relationship with my father and have had multiple opinions given to me on the matter. My father was never a notable figure in my life as he and my mom amicably split before I was born. He lives in a completely different state and has to my knowledge at least 7 other children, each having 7 different mothers. Yes, he's paid child support throughout the years, but reluctantly, so I'll elaborate on this later. I can count the amount of times I've seen him in person on one hand and can tell you nothing notable about his character as we've never formed a strong connection through text or phone calls. Now, about a month ago, I graduated high school and my father kept pestering me and my mom about when it was, where he could stay for a few days, etc. I was shocked by his asking this, and my mom seemed unentertained by his proposition, but she had kind of always expected that he'd be there on my special day, though I never imagined this as I only wanted my true immediate family and friends to attend and had only been given a meager 4 graduation tickets anyway. Now I had the awkward task of explaining to my mom that I didn't want him to attend, which resulted in her wanting a clear reasoning as to why and my unfiltered feelings about his attendance. Here's a bit of what I told her, but all the instances of discomfort are too long to share here. I told her I felt uncomfortable with having a grown man I'd barely know attending my ceremony and celebration dinner. It'd be unfair to my best friend, brother, different fathers, sister-in-law, and especially me to have to deal with his sudden looming presence on my special day when none of us even know the man like that. I also told her that I'd found out from a family friend that one of the few instances he'd visited me was in fact not just planned so he could see my dance recital, but was also planned so that he could discuss possibly lowering or ending child support payments to my mother. Beside this, I've had to put up with awkward social media interactions from him, such as him sending me a video of his son's soccer game. I've had plenty of lacrosse games, not that he's shown up to any throughout my 4 years of high school. He tends to call me princess in messages, which is weird cause, once again, I barely know this man and I am about to be an entire college student next month. And here's the cherry on top of the strange bullshit I already put up with. His wife tagged me in a Father's Day post for him. I don't know her, or him like that, and I reserve my happy Father's Day for my single mom, not him. My mother was a little taken aback, but understood me completely, and eventually called my father to uninvited him from the graduation he was never really invited to anyway. I was too worked up to do it, and was afraid I'd cry on the phone, and I really didn't want to give him a moment to comfort me about the whole situation. Anyway, ever since I blocked him and his wife on Instagram, as I need a break from him and his comments on my posts and generally just seeing him in my feed. I've muted him and haven't responded to his texts in over a month. My mom says I shouldn't be petty and that I should respond, but I'm just so resentful. I mean, if he really wanted to, couldn't he hop on a plane and work it out in person? He works at an airplane and has managed free flights in the past. Should I give him a chance? I don't know, and there are so many more unspoken details, but it hurts to think of it all. Story: 14 years and I kept your secret. It costed me myself. When I was 14, my boyfriend broke up with me, and I had the bright idea of dating his best friend right afterward. Well, after 2 months of dating Chris, I knew it was not going to work out. I didn't have feelings for him like he did for me. I told my mother I was going to break it off. She told me not to. She said that Chris was a very sweet kid. And he was. He was nice, but I just didn't like him in that way. I tried to tell my mom this, but she didn't want me to make the same mistake my sister did and miss out on the nice guy. So, I kept seeing Chris a little while longer, even though I really didn't want to. It slowly got worse. My mom separated from my stepfather in 2010 and moved into the same apartment complex that Chris and his family lived in. He only lived a few doors down. I could see his apartment from my bedroom window. Mom and I moved into the apartment complex, and I started riding the bus with Chris before and after school. I made sure to always keep a smile on my face. Maybe I would learn to love him like Mom said. I used to sit in my closet and cry. I swear I hated myself. I wished I could just develop these feelings with a snap of a finger. I wished I could look this boy in his eyes without wanting to run. He would hold me and cuddle me. I couldn't let how I really felt show on my face, or else Mom would get upset. This is where the story gets complicated, and if you're still here, thanks. I'm not sure how or when or why it started, but Mom pretty much said I was not being flirty enough with Chris through text, not texting like a girlfriend. Makes sense, since I did not want to be his girlfriend in the first place. But I was trying my best. I felt like I failed her. So, Mom took over. She started texting Chris, pretending to be me. She would tell me anything I needed to know before I went out with Chris anywhere. So, she was the person behind the phone, but I was the one Chris was dating. After a while, I could tell he was starting to wonder why I acted so different in person than through text. We dated for a little over a year and 2 months. At some point, Mom suggested to Chris that he should also join the community play I was in after school. One more place I couldn't hide, had to keep pretending to be the girlfriend around my castmates. She even invited him to go out of state and meet family with us during Christmas. God, I hate this memory. I remember telling her I didn't want him to go. She told me it wasn't a done deal anyway, his parents probably wouldn't let him go. I prayed and prayed he wouldn't go. My heart sank when I felt the car pull into his driveway and I heard his parents talking to mine. For the entire 10-plus-hour car ride there and back, including the entire 4-day vacation, I had to put the mask on. Smile when he cuddled me. Giggle when he would tell me how much he loved me. Inside, I felt like the fucking devil. He deserved someone who had those same feelings for him. Okay, time for a plot twist, just to keep things interesting, of course. At some point, some girls started to bully me online, leaving mean comments. In all honesty, they never bothered me that much. But Mom created a fake account, pretending to be a teen girl the same age as me, Molly. Molly was my age, and we met through my older cousin who was in the foster care system in a completely different state, so we only kept in contact through text messages. Keep in mind, Molly is not real. But to me, she was. Mom would stay up for hours at night looking for pictures and editing them online to make them all look like or similar enough to what this Molly girl looked like. I don't know if I can write in words how deep this went. Molly needed friends to be real, so Mom purchased multiple burner phones for each one. She had multiple spiral notebooks with all the different login Facebook accounts for each person. She would only really use Molly, or as far as I know, to talk to people. I found out later she didn't just use Molly to reply to rude comments. She had me talk and act like Molly was real when I was around certain people. Oh yeah, I saw Molly last week, etc. Right before Mom let me break up with Chris, I started secretly dating a boy named Frankie. I was head over heels for Frankie. He was my first love, and we ended up dating for a little over 2 years. Ready for another plot twist? Frankie had a younger brother named Marco. Both Frankie and Marco did not have the best home life with their guardian. Oftentimes, they would get locked out to sleep in the backyard, or they would have to find something to eat in the dumpster behind the fast food restaurants where they lived. When my mom found this out, she invited them both to live with us. Frankie was 18, and Marco and I were both 16 or 17. Marco is only 8 months older than me. Mom came into my room and laid down next to me one night. I could read the text on her phone over her shoulder. It was from Marco, and it had a winky face. I don't recall what it said, but it made me uncomfortable. I told her, "Mom, he's flirting with you." She tried to brush me off with, "Oh, don't be silly, he didn't mean anything by it." A few days later, they both came to Frankie and me and confessed they started dating. Neither one of us took it well. Mom and Marco argued and fought a lot. It was almost every night we went to sleep listening to an argument. After a while, Frankie and I broke up, and he moved out. No one knew Mom and Marco were dating. It was a secret, one that couldn't come out. Why? Because Mom was trying to get custody of my brother's 3 kids because he was, and still is, struggling with addiction. I couldn't let anyone find out about Marco and Mom for my niece and nephew's sake. That's why I always kept my mouth shut. That, and I felt my mom deserved happiness. She was forced to marry my dad at a young age. I'm in therapy, I know now none of this is an excuse for what she did. She had issues and never worked through them, and now I get to suffer. Before Frankie and I broke up, we went on a trip to the beach. All 4 of us together. Mom and Marco shared a room, and Frankie and I shared the other room. Looking back now, I know how bad this looks. But back then, I was just excited to be with my boyfriend. One night was spent being the mediator between Mom and Marco because they got into an argument. I always defended her. Whenever people would ask why Marco lived with us when he wasn't related to us, I kept the secret. But now I know the truth. After my stepfather passed away, I did what I was always scared to do and did the math from the memories I can remember. And the math broke my heart. You were 45. He was 17. You keep saying, "Oh, I wish you would get over the problem you have with Marco." If he wasn't here, who would help me? I never chose Marco over my kids. Bullshit, Mom. And you know how I know that's bullshit? Because Marco still lives in that house with you. Multiple family members have told you how they felt about Marco, and not once did I say you ever chose him over your kids. But the truth is, you absolutely 100% have chosen Marco over your children. Remember when Marco told me I was the reason for your blood pressure rising? Or what about that giant mirror he broke with his fist while y'all argued? You drove him to the ER while I cleaned up the glass. I asked him to put the dishes away, and he cussed me out, so I locked him out of the house. He climbed through a window to get back inside. I thought that would have been the final straw, but no, he's still here. I realize now, Mom, you're a narcissist, and I love you, but you hurt me, and I spent my whole life safe inside my mind. Now I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder, trying to just figure out who I am at 27 years old. Story: AITA for asking my boyfriend to minimize contact with his ex-FWB. Okay, so 22 years old, 24 years old, my boyfriend had been together for a year and a few months before we met. He come out of a 8-month-long friends with benefits relationship with this girl 26 to 27 years old who he's remained close with since. When my BF and I first met, he told me about her pretty much straight away, which I really appreciated, and said I don't think I'd mind if they stayed friends, long as it seems platonic. The first time, of the 3 times I ever met her, it became clear she was naturally very flirty. She would grab his face, touch him playfully, recall their sexual history even in front of me. It unsettled me, but as it is my first relationship, I couldn't really tell if these feelings were valid. For context, they met one-to-one often and only lives a few streets away, whereas I'm 2 buses away, and they always text each other kisses and call each other dear and other various pet names. Recently, a guy from my past who I was only ever in talking stage with contacted me and asked to meet. Of course, I said no as I'm in a relationship, but he's okay to become a friend. My boyfriend was very uncomfortable, which I get totally, so I cut off all contact with the guy. But as my relationship is now a year strong, this situation brought me to communicate my discomfort with him keeping in close touch with his ex-friends with benefits. I made the point that if I don't talk to guys which make him anxious, then please can he minimize one-to-one contact with her. I wouldn't have asked him to at first, but now we've lasted a year, I feel my feelings are valid. My boyfriend texts her asking when she's free to meet, as he'd rather do it in person, but it gets to the day before they're meant to meet and she texts him, "Are we still friends?" He sees this as an in to mention minimalizing contact and to drop the one-on-one meets as to respect me, but she doesn't take it well. She sends a very aggressive text swearing about it and calling me manipulative, controlling, and getting between them. She then calls him, crying to him that she's going through a lot, she needs him, and that I'm insert negative adjectives. My boyfriend defending me throughout and honestly was very taken aback by her reaction. For context, I'm also going through a lot which she spitefully says I need to get real help for, so I don't know why she thinks her mental health is an excuse, meanwhile mine is a problem. Anyway, she then texts all of my BF and I's friend group and even his family, twisting it as me making him cut her off, literally calling me controlling and manipulative, implying abuse. She doesn't know me at all, so her hatred of me must be to do with my role as his girlfriend. This whole situation really brought to light that my gut instinct about her was probably right, and my boyfriend's perception of her has completely changed having seen her do this. Bye and see you again in the next videos and stories.